Good evening and welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. It has ended Celtic 1, Stuttgart 4, which may actually have been maybe the only positive as we kept it down to 4. Sean, I am joined by Sean Conley and appreciate it's very, very late where you are, Sean, so thank you for the effort. We are always here whether we win, lose or draw. And unfortunately tonight it's a loss, and I think the run of trying to pull games out of the bag at the end of matches, it just wasn't really on the cards tonight, Sean, was it? We didn't really have the application. I don't think we had the quality, yeah, it doesn't make for nice reading. But I think the result probably quite accurately reflected the overall performance. What did you make of it overall?
Yeah. Also, don't worry, mate. It's not late here. It's early. I'm going to shower and go to work after this. But yeah, it was performance-wise. We turned it on for about 10 minutes in the first half, about 15 minutes until the goal in the second half, and other than that, it was pretty apathetic from the players. You could say it's a positive that we're 4-1 down on aggregate, so we can properly phone it in next week, unlike tonight where we phoned it in for the majority of the match, but not the entirety. Another positive would be that nobody seemed to get injured, as far as I can tell. And other than that, the only players that really showed anything would be Van Chara, who put in a good shift and looked decent. And surprisingly, Iheanacho, when he came on, looked pretty decent as well. But overall, a lot of negatives tonight. Actually, the biggest negative for me, huge, was the booing of Kasper Schmeichel.
Yes.
I thought he had a real poor game. He was absolutely at fault for 2 of the goals directly. The third one was just absolutely pathetic attempt at goalkeeping, and that was on his supposedly uninjured right hand side as well. So I think we can almost put this left hand side to bed. It's just his body in general apparently now. But then when he starts receiving possession and the fans start booing him, and it happened for a good 2-3 minutes where you got like half a dozen touches and you got booed in every touch. And I thought that was really, really poor behaviour from audibly thousands of supporters, and I thought we'd stopped that after Neil Lennon in 2003, but it's made a comeback tonight. And as much as you can criticise Schmeichel for his performance, booing him turns him from the perpetrator into the victim, so he's therefore now immune from criticism when you boo him. So I think it was really poor. Sorry, I had another point but I forgot. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think I'll touch on the booing first of all. I mean, I think, look, players are always going to be criticised and they're always going to be subject to criticism. Goalkeepers probably more than most. I would agree with you. I thought Kasper was probably at fault for 2.5 of the 4 goals we lost tonight. I think 2 goals certainly didn't get down fast enough and not strong enough or positioned well enough. I think the second goal, I think it's a combination of him and Trusty and us generally as a team not defending well enough. I would like to see him command his box a lot more for the second goal. Fourth goal, I think the team had switched off at that point. I thought we just weren't doing the basics that we needed to be doing. But I agree with you. I have been a Celtic supporter for a long time. I was a season tickets holder for a long, long time. I know I'll be subject to criticism for not getting to games these days. There are reasons for that. But I never, ever think it's acceptable to boo any of your players on the park. Certainly not for when they're having a poor performance. Players are always going to have poor performances. It happens to the best players. I think you don't do them any favours by booing them. I think it puts them under increased pressure, and actually it probably reinforces some of what they're already struggling with. So, and I agree with you. I think it does detract from what you want to be genuine criticism done through the right channels. Players, managers, teams, for me, should be subject to criticism on platforms like this post-match when you can break it down and analyse it as objectively as possible. But look, see, at the same time, I also want to say that I understand the strength of feeling from supporters at the moment. I mean, I've very rarely do you see Celtic supporters walking out the stadium as early as they did tonight, and I think it was a reflection of the performance, and not just the fact that I think we were up against decent opposition tonight, because I didn't see a massive, gulf in quality from Stuttgart. Stuttgart played well enough, but I don't think they weren't, head and shoulders above us in terms of what we would expect to see. But what got me tonight, I think, was the lack of intensity. And actually, Joe Hart on commentary on TNT made a great point. Why did the effort suddenly drop off so badly towards the end of that game? There's a second leg still to play for. There's still another leg to play for. We shouldn't be giving up 5 or 10 minutes before the end of the first leg, and that for me is a mentality issue, which I don't think Martin O'Neill will accept. I think he'll have very strong opinions on that, and hopefully putting them across in the dressing room. But that for me was the biggest indictment of where the Celtic team is at the moment, and that they look beaten when we're not even halfway through a two-legged tie, and that was frustrating. But I do want to get some of the comments in. As you can imagine, Sean has a lot of real strength of feeling. I mean, what is it as simple as saying we just don't have the quality to compete at this level now, even this level of European competition, or does it all stem back to the lack of investment in the summer, the lack of support for the manager at the time, the lack of preparation to come into Europe? Where do you see the root cause of our issues at the moment?
Well, those two things are the same thing, really. So yes, I disagree slightly. I thought that Stuttgart did look a level or two above us, on top of the layer of apathy that we showed for most of the game.
Yep.
On your point of Martin O'Neill won't accept it, I actually think tacitly he permitted this tonight. And when you see his post-match interviews since in the last 4 days, that's kind of came across publicly that he could be doing without this European thing, and that came across on the pitch tonight. Other than a couple of minutes where professional pride kicked in, the players just didn't really look like they wanted to be playing. Didn't look like they wanted to be out there. Didn't look like they had any intent to win. Never mind belief that they could win. And if you go back, and the evidence for that is not when you're 3-1 down and shattered. The evidence is it 1 each, and that second goal, the press from Taneke was zero. Bernardo's press was pathetic, and then Scales just sleeping. He's marking a Celtic player, and the guy gets a free header in the 6-yard box from a deflected cross that came from 40 yards out. That was kind of indicative of where the mental attitude was for the Celtic players tonight, I think. Another big takeaway I took from tonight is that if you're going to put the ball anywhere near Taneke off the ground, you might as well just kick it out of play. He just offers nothing aerially. That again, it's the first goal comes from Schmeichel, empties it, and it goes towards Taneke, and he gets out of the way of the guy and lets him win a header. There's another one in the second half where a cross goes to him at the back post, and he does this thing where he just jumps in the air, not even looking at the ball, pretending that he's going to, and just jumps into the guy. And that's an absolute pretend. I can't head this, or I don't want to head this. I'm just going to pretend to challenge for it. So I would say that we can, if his teammates don't know by now, don't put it anywhere near him off the ground, because he's just not interested or not capable.
Yeah, I mean, I think aerially we were very weak tonight, not just with Taneke, but I would agree with that. There was a couple of occasions where I thought, this is what we spoke about. Don't be bullied. We need to be stronger. We need to stand up to. I mean, football's a physical game. It's a contact sport. You need to be able to stand up to challenges. And I've seen smaller players than some of these guys, stand up to challenges far better than that. Interestingly enough, I was examining Taneke's performance, and I praised him before the match. I thought he had turned around a lot of people's opinions. He was starting to come on and influence games. I felt he had actually his best game as a winger on the right-hand side, and I did some checking and verification. He is a right-footed player. Now, a couple of occasions tonight in the second half where he did get to the byline, he couldn't get an accurate cross in. But is that because he's having to cross with his weaker foot? And in which case, why are we insisting on playing a right-footed player as a left winger? I get the argument for cutting in and having shots, and we saw the benefit of that last week. But surely, if we want him to play as a traditional winger and provide service to our, to players inside the box, whether it be late arriving midfielders or a striker, he's got to be on the right hand side. I don't get this modern thing of wingers becoming inside forwards who want to cut in all the time. I know it can work, but we don't seem to be getting the profit from it.
Yeah, it just depends on the style of the player, really. When you think of James Forrest, he's a right-footed player who has to play in the right wing.
Yep.
But then majority of modern wingers these days, they've kind of trained to cut inside and either have a shot or a cross. And obviously, someone who's right-footed playing on the right can't cut inside and cross. So it kind of neuters the second option for them. Like they just cannot. Like when they come inside, there's nothing. They're going to have to pass it at that point. So it really makes them kind of predictable for the fullback to deal with. So that's kind of why. Whereas generally speaking, people can at least pass a ball when they if they go down the outside on their weaker foot, they can generally at least try and find someone with a pass. So I think it's the percentages say that you're more likely as an inverted winger these days. That's Nicholas. I think almost every winger we've had in the last 10 years has been, left foot on the right foot on the left kind of thing. I think that's the general trend.
I think it does depend on being able to have that quality on your weaker foot, though. And I think that's the point I'm making. I get, I get it as the modern trend. I'm just getting frustrated at the amount of crosses which are going behind the goal at the moment, rather than, accurately. And it's, at that point, the move breaks down and you're back on the back foot. But yeah, it's it could just come down, as you say, to a quality issue as well. We had spoken about Bernardo, and, I don't want to go down too hard on individual players, but I'm trying to find areas of, where we really had issues tonight. And I think, we spoke about Bernardo coming in for Rio Hatate. Rio's been under a lot of scrutiny. He came on in the second half. What was your thoughts on Rio Hatate? I think Bernardo, you felt did okay.
My thoughts on Rio Hatate.
Yeah, I know your general thoughts on Rio Hatate, and I saw your social media post. But I mean, is it down to the players? Is it down to the fact that the system of the three in midfield is just not working for us anymore? What do you put it down to? Is it just the individuals are just not good enough to play this system?
I think there's a disconnect, and I think that McGregor's losing a bit of what he had before and is not able to. I think he was compensating a lot for deficits that he's not longer able to do anymore. So I think you mentioned Bernardo specifically, but we talked about it earlier. I thought he actually was pretty good in retaining possession and cycling it. I thought his main deficit today was off the ball. His pressing was just non-existent. Whereas I think Nygren had both those deficits tonight. Like his off the ball and on the ball were quite poor. Where Nygren stands out and shines is his offensive play. He scores a good goal, and it was a good team press, which leads to the turnover, and then very composed to go around the goalkeeper. Good finish. He's definitely been, in an attacking sense, he's been a bright light this season. And he almost scores a second as well. It was actually a really good save, and I think the commentary on TNT had it as, I think it was Joe Hart points out that it's kind of a passive aggressive dig. Like the goalkeeper's made a great save, and then he specifically mentioned something Kasper Schmeichel is not currently able to do, and that wasn't even from us. That wasn't even from us, right? But it was. So Nygren almost does score a second. He does have a good game overall in terms of attacking, but his ability to retain possession. He was under a lot of pressure, to be fair, at times. It was sometimes three men around him. But then, it's overall not the best game from anyone in midfield. And when you see the changes we make, McCowan is absolutely putting a shift in when he comes on. And does relatively well. But again, there's times where if you're the most attacking player and you're closing down on your own and no one's helping you, like that team press we had for our goal, there was a lot of the time, certainly in the second half, someone would go off in a press and they'd just be on their own. Like Van Chara at one point was running back between the centre back and the goalkeeper with no support. McCowan was doing it at one point, pressing with no support. If you don't press as a team, you're just wasting your energy, and that's an effort thing and a mentality thing.
Yeah, there was one moment in the second half that I want to point to, which became, while it was a highlight, became a source of frustration for me, and it was Araujo picks up the ball deep in midfield, runs through, skins about 3 or 4 players, almost makes something happen. You think that's it. That's what we as supporters want to see. We want to see something that kind of galvanizes the support, gets people off their feet, and you think something could happen. Now, I think it was pointed out that defender got a touch to it. I had actually thought Maeda got in his way a little bit. It might have been unfair in saying that. But when you see something like that happen during a game, and if you're a footballer, you're on the park, you're one of the teammates, you see that he's actually managed to gain so much ground, get into the box, and there's a potential of something happening. Why do we not do more of that? Why do the other players not think, wow, we can get at these guys if we just get our head down, run with the ball, and make something happen? It was one of the few moments in the match where I thought the players showed the kind of bravery and initiative to try and make something happen. But we're not seeing enough of that across the team. And it's frustrating. Is it just a measure of Araujo's quality that he's got confidence in his own ability to go and do that, but the other players don't?
Maybe there's a mistrust at the moment between the teammates, or like where if you're not consistently putting the effort in and consistently making these runs, then people will stop looking for you, right? Like that specific moment you're talking about where Araujo puts the ball, that ball bounces in the 6-yard box, right? Like you'd expect a striker to be there, and when you watch the replay, Vanchara is on his heels. And look, 15 minutes ago, I praised Vanchara for his overall effort. I thought he was good. I thought he put up a good fight against some good defenders, had some good overall play. But in that particular moment, he's not expecting or trusting that a good ball will come into that area. So he's just kind of on his heels, 8 yards out. And if he'd been alert to that and moving before the cross comes in, then he's got a tap in for a goal. So I think the players are not gelling together well. They're not reading each other, not trusting each other, not making good expectations of each other. Like a back post cross to Taneke, as I mentioned already. Like there's not a coherence at the moment that there has been in recently as last year, and has been in a very recent past with like Ange's teams and Rogers' teams, and like I don't know. I mean, we all talk about Martin O'Neill as a great motivator, and like I don't know that he's the one that's going to make players gel together in a tactical sense. It feels like that's more a Maloney and Fotheringham job. So,
maybe so, yeah.
let's see what they do in that regard, because surely they can see it the same as us.
Yeah, and look, I appreciate there was a sense of feeling before the game that we didn't go into the game with particularly high expectations. Very difficult to say that as a Celtic fan, because I want to win every game. I'm really disappointed with the performance and the result tonight. I want us to win, but does this? I mean, we still have the second leg to go. It seems, you'd never say it, but it does seem a little bit like a dead rubber at the moment. Just something that we shouldn't necessarily prioritise, given that we're still chasing in the league. I want to bring up some of the comments actually, and then we'll try and respond to them, because there's still a few things that we want to cover off. But this shows the strength of feeling. Actually, I'm going to bring in Barry O'Sullivan first of all. Just feel embarrassed, not even angry anymore. I mean, the apathy is not just seemingly within the team. It's actually coming.
I would literally send the B team over. I would send like Kyle Ewer and that over to play this game. Like,
why not? Why not?
I would send that message. Like,
give them an opportunity. You might unearth something. Yeah, it's absolutely, and it's a shame to have to be in that position. But I agree with you. Malice comes in to say men against boys. Yeah, at times it did feel a bit like that. Craig Gardner, don't get angry. You just get used to it. Martin must be thinking what happened to Celtic Park in European nights. I think that is one of the tragedies, Craig, is that we're not. Celtic Park does not have that fortress feeling that it's had in previous season. Craig, you come back in to say Casper deserves to be booed because he doesn't take the blame for anything he does wrong. The blame element may be accurate. I'm just not a fan of booing our own players. I just think that we criticise other teams for doing that. I think we've always wanted to be held to a higher standard. It's not something you want to see. But that, as I say, I caveat that by understanding the strength of feeling within the support this season. And I think it does feel like it's not under normal circumstance at the moment. The frustration is growing and growing and growing, and it is only a matter of time before it starts to, be directed at the players. So I can sort of see both sides, even though I would never myself agree with booing players. And Jimmy Cameron comes in to say, but that was a horrendous performance. It's been coming. Well, we've spoken about the fact that we seem to, be pulling wins out domestically in, the last minutes, and maybe actually when the quality does go up, the quality of opposition does go up a little bit, then maybe this was on the cards, and we should maybe have been more prepared to see it. I think some supporters were. Sean, get the point in terms of just sending the B team, sending some of the youth players over. Maybe somebody's made the point in the comments. Maybe Balikwisha will get a game over in Stuttgart.
We've got Vukan, Balikwisha, and Adamu all doing nothing tonight. Get them on. Yeah, that's your front three for the next Stuttgart game.
Absolutely, give them the opportunity, because it's likely to be, I think, at this point, our last game in Europe this season. Looking more at the league going forward, obviously we've got a really tough run of games coming up. Hearts, Rangers, they're where they are on merit. Rangers seem to have turned their fortunes around a little bit. I don't think any of the three teams are really playing particularly well, but how confident are you that actually between now and the end of the season that we can, from the squad we've got, we can't really make too many changes. We do have Oxlade-Chamberlain coming back in, which we know seems to look quality even in his early performances, but are you still confident we've got enough to get this over the line, or do you think we're in for a tough run?
Sorry, you're talking about Europe or domestically?
Domestically. No, you're right. Europe, I think is
no point if I thought we had enough to get over the line domestically, to be honest. Like, I thought we would win the League Cup, even despite the Nancy debacle. I still thought we'd have enough to do that. And to be honest, since we lost that game to Hearts, and I've kind of felt like the league was past us. So my personal feeling is no, we don't. But I'm not chucking it, I'm not giving up. I think I said a couple of weeks ago that we had to win 11 out of our 13 remaining games and not lose to Hearts or Rangers 2012. So we've got them up soon, and Aberdeen away, there's no easy games left really, and the easier games would be like Livingston at home and Kilmarnock away, and we've made hard work of those. So I
was going to say we're not giving ourselves any easy games this season with our performances, are we? It's like things you would normally take for granted a little bit.
So no, I'm very far from confident. I don't believe we're going to win the league, but I'm still hopeful, and I'm still all in and looking for it. And there's still a chance. Like, if you look at the bookies, they've not got anyone as an odds on, right? It's everyone's like 2 or 3 to 1, like the top 3 teams. So I'm the squad's a bit deeper now, so we can chuck out these players that Stuttgart away, and that gives us a little bit of rest for our starters going to Ibrox. But honestly, like, this is where we're at, man. Like, a year ago, we were almost in extra time with Bayern Munich, and now we're like putting the reserves out in an away game to Stuttgart, who, well, they did look much better than us, and shouldn't look much better than us. Like, the times when we switched it on tonight, like, they did not look better, but we just, we were mostly apathetic tonight, and that wasn't.
And that I think for me is the biggest frustration when you look at where we were in Europe last season to this season. To be going into a second leg of a European tie with absolutely no belief that we can turn it around, with the view that we should play, our fringe players, as it were, just to give them minutes on the park, because we're not viewing it as anything to play for. I know that won't be every supporter's view, and I respect that. And certainly, Ewan Boy Martin, who is always looking on the positive, always looking at the bright side of life. Yeah, I get that. But I think Celtic Hardcore comes in above him here, says fail to prepare to fail, and that for me is going to sum up this season. We took a team and a squad that was, it had people talking about them in Europe in a positive way. The Gary Linekers, the Alan Shearers, people who wouldn't necessarily always give the focus to a team like Celtic, and we had them talking about us in very positive terms. And actually, through what we've all believed to be negligence, failure, weakness, failure to prepare, exactly as was mentioned. And we're in this position now, and it's a sad way for us to be as Celtic fans. And I know we get called entitled. People say you're not entitled to win. No, absolutely not. But when you are in such a position to continue your success, and you don't take advantage of that, it's very, very bitter pill to swallow. So, I do.
Well, can I just say, when you're charging fans £45 a ticket, you're entitled for the team to put some effort in.
100%, yes.
There's a real ethical dilemma about what was on that pitch today and what Celtic charged the fans.
Absolutely. I did see a comment from a fan actually talking about the cost to travel and get tickets for the return leg, and deciding not to go, and that's a difficult decision for a Celtic fan to make, and they should never be put in that position. So yeah, very, very poor. But as I said, we move on to the next game, and hopefully we start to see something domestically to give the supporters hope, because the supporters, I appreciate some left early. We've spoken a little bit about the booing, but there were supporters in that stadium that stayed right to the end there, and I felt as though they didn't get the same level of commitment from some of the players on the park. I want to talk about, because we haven't really addressed it, I want to talk about Kasper Schmeichel a little bit. Now, myself, a lot of the guys on Acsom, we've spoken about the quality that Kasper Schmeichel brought when he first joined the club. I think, Kasper, like every professional footballer, deserves, an off night at times. But Sean, what we seem to be witnessing, certainly towards the latter part of this season, is that his performances are starting to cost us points, whether it be Europe, whether it be domestically. Fans are starting to turn on him. We've obviously spoken about the booing. Martin O'Neill said that he would respect and show faith in Kasper from now until the end of the season. Now, that for me isn't realistic if a player's playing so badly, and particularly in such a critical position as a goalkeeper. Would you take Kasper Schmeichel out of the firing line now? But in doing that, do you have faith that Sinisalo is able to step up and actually perform to the level required?
In short, yes. Well, certainly yes to taking him out. And faith in Sinisalo, I think he can't do any worse. Like that, the third goal. Sorry, I was going to say fourth. The third goal tonight was just, that was Barkas level, man. Like that was literally that was a Barkas level attempt at a save. Like that's where we're at. It was so bad, and 100% against the booing. Like, don't support it at all. I don't like it. Don't support it. I condemn it. But it was just awful, that attempt to save at the third goal. Like, fair enough, there's a bit of pace on it, but it bounces off him. He gets his hand to it and like just pushes it into the net. Like it was like it's a new cabbage hands or something. I think he makes like one save all night. I think it wasn't like his goal was being peppered. Like it was so poor. It has to come out of the team, and that would be an absolute hammer blow to Schmeichel, I think, because he's trying to get himself right for the World Cup, and I don't think maybe we're not doing him any favors either, keeping him in and with this happening to him, like getting these sort of goals scored on him, having him fighting with, going to war with fans basically. And the commenter earlier said that it doesn't help himself and deserve the booing. I don't agree with the deserve booing. I do agree he doesn't help himself, because like that's the second time this season where he's just had total head loss, having a moan at the fans for their protests. Like, it's just a lack of awareness. Like, I don't know. Like, and then obviously there's been other games this season where he's turned around and blamed defenders for goals where he's been at fault. And I think a lot of that comes with players who are very high level. They do tend to do that. They do tend to externalize blame, and it probably helps insulate them against mistakes a little bit. But his mistakes are just so glaring. He must be seeing it now himself, and I'd say he needs for a mental break from the team, a mental break from what's going on. Whether you have faith in Sinisalo or not, why is there anyone who realistically doesn't expect Schmeichel to chuck one in at Ibrox in the same way he did tonight? Because that is a very, very realistic expectation at the moment based on his form.
Yeah, and make no mistake, it's a shame none of us want to see a top professional like Kasper Schmeichel with the career he's had, going through that kind of, really poor form. But ultimately, you have to take sentiment out of it a little bit, and it won't, it's no disrespect to what he's achieved before, but when I think a player is starting to become the reason or one of the key reasons for, your poor results and your contributing to poor performances, then I think it is strong management to maybe take him out the firing line. I just want to bring this up because it inform our last point to talk about. So Benny Boy comes in to say Martin O'Neill going mental in his interview, calling out the fans. Now, I'd spoken before the match. There'd been some rumours that there might have been a protest. It turns out that there was a protest. It was very, very early, I think almost immediately after kickoff. So not disruptive in a sense that it was obviously happening mid-match, which is I don't think anyone would really view positively. Sean, we've spoken a lot about the frustration of the fans, the disconnect between the board, the need to make a statement. Joe Hart was kind of, I was listening to him, he was kind of neutral on it, felt like he understood the fans' frustration, but also doesn't like to see something that happening at any point during a match which could maybe impact the players. If Martin O'Neill is having a go at the supporters for that protest, where do you stand on that? Do you think the supporters, one, have a right to protest, two, have a right to do it in that particular manner, and three, is the manager right to be calling it out?
One, yes. Two, yes. Three, I don't think I think he does, but not in this moment. I think Martin O'Neill is famously irrational and agitated after a loss, and he should maybe be at an age where he should be self-aware of that and not commenting on that sort of thing after, like, immediately after a game. We've all seen it for the last, we all remember his reactions against Juventus and things like that. Even recently describing a red card as a blue card. Like he's very, very not very balanced in the aftermath of dropping points. So I don't think that was the right moment to comment on it. So yeah, I think the fans do have a right to protest, though, especially what's going on. And I don't think it was. And if there's no disruption, what's the point, right? So like I think it was fine. I don't like it. I'm not happy that it has to be done, but I think it does. Something needs to be done, and I think it's probably the right level of protest at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Just going to finish with a comment from, if I can bring it up here, Al Patchett. This result isn't on the fans, and yeah, I do agree with that. And I know opinions vary, but I think the supporters, no matter which way you colour it, I think deserve a lot better from what they're saying here. I do have faith that Martin O'Neill will, achieve something this season. I still have faith that we can actually go and win the title, but I think it is under circumstances that we should not be facing. So there's no need for it. So yeah, not a great night for us. Sean, really appreciate you being with me, mate. I know you need to get heading off and going to work while the rest of us need to get our heads down and go to bed. So thank you very much for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind. Sorry for the result, guys, but appreciate all your support. We will be back as normal at 12:30 tomorrow. In the meantime, hope everyone has a great night, and yeah, we'll catch you tomorrow when we go on.
All good. On hoops.